Hello, welcome back. It's been a while since I have posted a video. Work has been unusually hard on my free time, and nevertheless, a brief update. The garden is going well. Now it is almost the end of the second week of November, and only this weekend I am moving my trees that need protection over winter to the cold greenhouse, and the rest will still stay in the bench even though the temperature will start to go just barely below zero now for the next week, and sometime in the next week they will be placed on their winter protection, which in my case is just small groups of 5 to 10 trees dispersed across the garden to diminish the probability that rodents attack an entire area, and also to make sure that in the spring, when the ice and the snow starts to melt, it's easier to take them apart. In the past, I used to make a single block of all my trees, and it would take over a month until I could put them back in the benches, even though the temperature was mild already. Other updates: I have visited the Pacific Northwest. I visited the collection of Todd Schlafer. I visited and worked together with Michael Hagedorn and his apprentice Carmen. I visited Bonsai Mirai and met Ryan Neal and the whole team there. I then visited the Pacific Bonsai Museum collection and met with Aaron Packard. Visited Dan Robinson and his collection, spent the whole afternoon with him. And then I also visited the Portland Japanese Gardens, as well as the Brooklyn Botanic Garden, and early in the beginning the Denver Botanic Garden, but there I couldn't see the bonsai. They were already back in winter storage. But I have filmed most of what I've seen, and as I have time to edit video, which is in short supply, that is why I'm not publishing video, although I have a lot of material saved. I will put out videos on those visits. Another video that is on the making, but again no time to edit the video properly yet, is our own exhibition here at the Côte Saint-Luc Library that took place on the 23rd of October, and it was a great success. I will speak more about each of these visits and activities when I have the chance to make a video. Today I wanted to shortcut the order of how things were filmed and discuss fall work on deciduous trees. And I will be working on this Japanese maple that is actually my first tree that I bought maybe 8 years ago. I don't remember well. And it has never been wired. It's in this pot for 2 years already. I will not repot it next year, but I will repot it the year after probably. Now, this tree started to lose leaves already, but it still has plenty of the leaves to show the beautiful color it has. I don't actually know what variety of maple this is. It is sold here in Quebec as the Yves Le Tourneau variety. Apparently he selected it. Yves Le Tourneau is one of the great assets of bonsai in Quebec. As a pre-bonsai grower, he's famous for his Japanese black pines and red pines, but many other species as well. And this tree, when I bought it, it was the size of this branch here, or even this one here. And it has been growing in pots ever since. Growing a tree in a pot as opposed to the ground or other means makes development slower, but there is a factor in the equation that many people ignore, and to me it's not just the speed at which you grow bonsai, but also the enjoyment of growing bonsai. And part of the enjoyment of growing bonsai is to have a beautiful tree in a beautiful pot in your garden, and not just trees in wooden boxes or in the ground, or in how do you call it, salad bowls with holes. Forgot the name. And so I'm willing to sacrifice some of the speed which this tree could be developed for the enjoyment of watching it develop slowly every day. And another advantage often of growing slowly is that you can control a lot more internode length and the development. So this tree has never been wired. I'm not sure if we will wire it today or not, but the first step will be to remove the leaves. Now, about the timing for the work, as you see that the leaves start to wrinkle on the edges, and let me see if I can get you a close up here without losing focus too much. So I'll try here to focus on this leaf. So as you can see, the very edge here, it's starting to lose color and wrinkle. As the leaves turn this way, whatever is the red pigment here is what's left and the tree cannot absorb. The tree here already absorbed all the chlorophyll and other compounds that it can from the foliar mass, and so really what's left over, it's now deteriorating. It's not being further absorbed by the tree, and now it is safe to remove all these leaves. In a Japanese maple, you can simply pull them like this, and they come out very easy this time. So it's not something that needs to take much time. In other species, you may need to, and especially if the leaves are still a little bit green, you may need to hold let me find here. You may need to hold the leaf and pull the petiole against the direction of the axis of the branch. So let's do that again. So for example here, if this was another species that is a little more strongly attached, or a little early in the season, I can pull back, and that will remove from the base of the leaf. But on a Japanese maple at this stage, simply doing this is enough. Look how small the leaves I can get. Let me try to compare this to my wedding ring. That's how small you can get leaves on this variety. So first step here, to remove all the leaves. And if you're presenting a tree in a winter silhouette mode, you can save some of these leaves and put them some around the pot and on the table to use as part of your display to represent fall, even if it's later on. But especially if it is fall time. That's it. The tree in its current form, winter silhouette. And I have some interesting branching starting to develop, very small here. So the idea really is just to try to correct mistakes in terms of trifurcations and more, but not necessarily remove everything that grows up. For example, here we have bifurcation. Let me see here. Yeah. Here we have a bifurcation, and just before we have one branch coming up, and this is very normal for a deciduous tree. This is not a pine or a conifer in general, so we balance. We have to adapt our aesthetics and make and if we want to make this look like a nice deciduous tree. I don't know, I could wire some of these branches, but I don't want to interfere too much with the natural lines. Whenever we wire and you bend, you very often produce results that are recognizable as non-natural. In this case, this little tree here, I think it's set for next year's growth, and this is it. Now I'll bring my largest maple, the President, and we will take a look at it. So here we have the President. It's a blood good Japanese maple, and just to compare with the tiny maple leaf variety, of course it's considerably bigger, but the shape of the leaf is almost identical. Now the leaves in the bloodgood can be decreased. They are already bigger than this normally, but I'm being very careful on the fertilization, and I am not fertilizing this tree in the spring until the first flush hardens off. And so this is the time, again, almost starting to pass the time to work on it. The leaves are already wrinkling, but there is still some that are fresh, and so you can pull them and they come out easy, but you can also, as I mentioned, push back towards the base, like here. You can pull back, and that at this time this is very easy to do. This tree was partially defoliated this year. That's why you see in many places only a single leaf instead of a pair. So the partial defoliation this year was done by removing one leaf on each pair. Whatever has two pairs is because it grew after the defoliation. I am, however, not very happy with the result of the partial defoliation. Let's discuss a little bit what are the goals of defoliation. The first and only reliable goal in defoliation is to balance the energy in the tree. So if you have a lot of foliage here and weak branches, you can partially defoliate the top and not touch these other branches here. So for example, here, if this side of the tree was very weak and this is very strong, I could partially defoliate this side and leave alone the other one. A less reliable function of defoliation is to create further ramification, which it does, more reliable in some species than others. In this one, partial defoliation doesn't reliably give you extra ramification, but full defoliation, which is a very dangerous thing to do, you have to in the sense that you have to prepare in advance for it, has better results on this species, on this, or rather on this variety of maple. In the past, I have partially defoliated and I have fully defoliated. Now, what is the preparation for a full defoliation? Is strong fertilization. So you have to fertilize strongly in the fall, which I didn't. I fertilized normally, not strongly. And you have to also fertilize strongly in the spring, which I won't. And so this tree, if I were to fully defoliate next year, I would have to ramp up fertilization in the spring, in view of that procedure. And but if I don't, I should not fully defoliate, but I can partially defoliate to distribute energy, and maybe we'll have some bonus of additional branching emerging in particular areas. So to give you a 360, this is the current front. Here we have a ladybug. They have been extremely numerous this fall, and the idea is to have a natural deciduous tree with growing in a field, so from lower branches that are spread and going up all the way to vertical at the apex. This one has a single apex, and unlike some professionals here in Montreal would suggest, this is a variety in which you can have short internodes if you have the proper technique. So take a look here. I have an internode that is similar to what I have on the other maple. In other places I have larger internodes, but as you can see here, the closer the internodes closer to the edge, so less tears grow in essence, are much shorter, simply because now I transitioned from development to refinement in this tree. You may ask, well, why do you call this in refinement? It's still ugly and it's still not finished. But refinement has nothing to do with the tree being ready to be exposed. Refinement has everything to do with management of growth. And so in a tree where you have to regenerate the roots, or where you want to heal wounds, in this case I don't really want, I don't care actually. I could, but I don't really care. But if I wanted to hide these wounds fully, I would have to have enough growth to actually maximize the amount that I cover them. And if I'm not doing that, then this is not a concern for treating this tree in development. So if you want to regenerate the roots, if you want to heal wounds, if you want branches to get thicker and longer, okay, these are situations in which you want unrestrained growth, you want strong growth, and so the management of foliage can be done in a way that does not decrease the volume of photosynthetic surface, so you keep a lot of ramification, but definitely the fertilization has to be stronger. In this case, because I want to start promoting short internodes, I'm already in a pot, so this is not something that you can do on the ground. Then I can control fertilization, and then this is not something that with a weaker fertilization, it's not something that allows me to reliably fully defoliate this tree. So next year I will continue in this process and not revert to a developmental fertilization. Rather, I will keep the course that I'm following with fertilizing only after the first flush has hardened, and then I will fertilize it with my current process, which is only using kelp and fish hydrolysate distributed very dilutedly on every watering through a dositron system. In the spring and the fall, I also complement for the trees that need it with soluble synthetic fertilizer, like any powder that you buy, Miracle Grow or whatever. Only a little bit of it. So these are all of these fertilizers are presented to the tree in a dose that is equivalent to 1/20 of what the manufacturers of these fertilizers prescribe for a once every 2-week application. So instead of applying x being equal to 14, I apply x divided by 20, and that is because I'm applying 3 different things. So it's a little bit stronger, adding up to what each one of them would be, but I think it makes much more sense to give a tiny little bit every watering as opposed to every 2 weeks and nothing in between. I have a watering system where I have 2 hoses, one that goes through the dositron and the other that doesn't, so I can water trees in the spring with just water or with fertilizer added to it. I am very happy with the results that I had this year, and I'm shifting away entirely from using pellets of fertilizer, either in tea bags or on their own, simply because they destroy the moss, and although in my garden I have the problem that the birds are much more of a nuisance in destroying the moss than fertilizer. But this is a continuing process. I keep experimenting. The reality is that everything goes. You can have fully organic fertilizer in pellets. You can have synthetic fertilizer in slow release form with the Nutracoat or things like that. You can have powder synthetic fertilizers that you dilute in water, and the likes of Dan Robinson and Walter Paul use purely synthetic soluble fertilizer in heavy amounts, and their trees are wonderful. So anyone that tells you that there's only one way of doing things in bonsai and it's their way is wrong. There are many ways to do it, and that's what at once makes it wonderful but also difficult to, because it's hard to experiment with small amount of trees in one's collection what is best or not. So this is a tree that has a lot of scars. You can still see where it was buried in the ground. This tree was collected in 2018. It was first reported, I think, in 2021, if I'm not sure. Yeah, the spring of 2021. So it's on its second year in a bonsai pot. In terms of substrate, I'm using here 100% Shabazai, but I don't frankly see any benefit on Shabazai as opposed to other substrates such as diatomaceous earth. This tree was growing and it recovered from collection with 100% diatomaceous earth mixed with the coconut bark, and the fine nature of the roots was amazing. So I will probably stop using Shabazai and use 100% diatomaceous earth mixed with composted pine bark in the future for this tree, and other deciduous, and in other material that in pines and junipers and elongating species, I'll mix it with lava and pumice. So this is the back. It has this huge wound here that is slowly healing. Again, if I could cover this with cement or epoxy and wound the edges, I will leave it like this for now. There's time for that. There's an interesting branch here that I think it's worth keeping coming here. But this is the front. I still have the sharp cuts from collection, and this tree could perhaps go on a pot that is perhaps 1 inch deeper. I couldn't do it. That was the only pot I had for it. For now it will stay there, but in the future it may go a little deeper. Just we don't lose anything of the nebari by going a little deeper, and we actually will hide these wounds and improve the presentation. So just a little bit, one inch more. So now the scope of the work is the same as before, which is to remove stuff that is growing where we don't want it to, and in this case maybe we'll use some wire, but we'll decide on that. So this is it for now. The dead wood will continue to rot. Whatever wants to heal will heal, and we'll see how this tree develops next year. I will not fertilize it in the spring. I will start fertilizing after the first flush will harden, and that's it. So until the next one, thank you for your attention and for your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye for now.